Hey, what's up guys? Alex Espinoza with the Ricky Henderson of YouTube. Thanks a lot for tuning in to another Ricky Report. Use the code RickyBlog at lastdivebar.com for 10% off your next order. Use my affiliate link down below. Alright, so today I'm just going to do a full kind of in-depth breakdown of what happened in Thursday's Las Vegas Stadium Authority meeting. And again, the Las Vegas Stadium Authority is an 11-member appointed committee kind of oversee this whole process. It was founded during the Raiders process when they started Allegiant Stadium 2016, 2017, around there. So they met on Thursday, and you know the last meeting that we had was in May, so it was about 2 months since the last meeting. And on Thursday it was kind of short on details again. There really wasn't much. Many hard updates from the A's here. Just kind of some clerical stuff that needs to get done in order for this process to happen. Like the A's, they as we noted in the preview video from before, you know, they dropped a 109-page agenda last Friday, and it kind of basically established this thing called the Athletic Stadco, which is like an arm of the A's that will, you know, handle all the stadium and the future revenues and all that kind of stuff. But so just kind of, you know, a necessary hoop you had to jump through here. And but there was kind of some sketchy stuff going on with this current meeting on Thursday because, you know, Nevada's open meeting law requires that, you know, at least 3 business days before the meeting, that you publish the agenda and public notice and everything, where it's going to be, everything like that. So last Friday, the Friday before the meeting, you know, the Las Vegas Stadium Authority published this 109-page document that I went through in depth on the preview. But about 40 minutes, and it was what was noticeably absent was the draft development agreement, which they alluded to at the end of the doc, but it was just this one sentence and then a 109-page agenda. But 40 minutes before Thursday's meeting, they dropped a 90-page draft development agreement and a 37-page draft non-relocation agreement with some reworked language. So I thought that was kind of weird. You know, I looked into it. It looks like supplemental materials might not have to be published, you know, up to 3 days before, even though it's in the spirit of the law. They want everything to be public. And also I saw something, I noticed that on the top right corner of all the draft development agreement, it said private and confidential because it had to do with real estate. And I guess under Nevada open meeting law, if it's confidential information, you don't have to publish it until it's you know, shared with the committee. So maybe they just didn't hand this paper over to the committee until 40 minutes before the meeting. So I don't know what happened, but basically 40 minutes before, you know, had a draft development agreement and a non-relocation agreement, and there wasn't much of consequence in there, and I'll go through that in detail here in a bit. So as expected, we got introduced to John Fisher's right-hand man, Sandy Dean, who's going to be the head of the Athletic Stadco, which is of course the A's arm, which is going to be, you know, heading up this whole stadium. The Raiders formed something similar a few years ago as well. So here is Sandy Dean, and he kind of introduced himself, and he started Sansom Partners as an investment firm with Fisher back in '97, I believe, and they've known each other since their days at Stanford at the Graduate School of Business.
Thanks very much, Chairman Hill. I'm pleased to have the chance to address the board, and I've had the opportunity to meet a number of you, but for those that I haven't, my name is Sandy Dean, and I've worked with the Fisher family for more than 25 years on a variety of their activities outside of Gap Inc. And in recent years, I've spent a lot of time working on the effort to develop a new venue for the A's. The various documents that are being brought forth, it's a lot of material, and we appreciate the engagement on that. We obviously had a good base to start with the documents from what worked for the Raiders, but also it's still a lot of details to confirm.
So honestly, Dean didn't really have much to say. He talked for about 7 or 8 minutes. Didn't really have much to say. Kind of gave us an update, non-update, basically just saying that, you know, they're still finalizing the stadium design, and because of that, they don't have financing because they don't have a stadium design. And really, the whole time I was watching this, I was thinking, like, what have you guys been doing the past 14, 15 months, you know? Because it's been 15 months since they made the binding land deal at Wild Wild West, which of course was dissolved 3 weeks later, despite being binding. as the A's pivoted from the 50-acre Wild Wild West site to the 9-acre Tropicana lot, where they're still trying to get a stadium done right now, 14 months later, and really don't have much to show for it, which we learned on Thursday. So here's just like a preview of what Dean said. Again, I'll go into more detail about it, but here's a little snippet from Dean's thing about the financing.
It would be a positive to have outside investors in the team, particularly investors from Las Vegas. And so we are going to talk with folks about that. And that's something we'll be getting going on in the coming months. It has been intentional to defer that until sometime soon, because we thought it would be helpful to have the design for the stadium be more refined before going out to talk with investors. I want to state in the affirmative, we are in good shape for the financing. It is something we've been planning for some time. And we'll be back with more detail on that, I think, in the fall.
So, again, it's kind of like, what have you been doing the past 14 months since pivoting to the Tropicana? You would think you would have some financing and stuff going on. And it seems like the A's are still in the exploratory phase of this ballpark. And also, I guess I'm kind of curious is what the role of Las Vegas Stadium Authority is. I don't know if they're here to put scrutiny and kind of be oversight, or if they're just here to greenlight stuff and just blindly just say, yeah, just bring over a team here. Like I don't really know. I mean, it's funny. So a couple of different times Dean asked for questions and he got nothing, and even he looked kind of surprised, like, oh, okay, nothing for me, okay.
Any questions on any of that? I'd be happy to answer any questions if that's appropriate.
Yeah, thanks, Andy.
Okay, thank you so much.
Appreciate that update, and we'll look forward to continuing to get updates and progress reports as things roll along.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So again, is this a green light committee or an oversight committee? I don't know, but and honestly, I haven't really paid attention to public politics and all this stuff until the past couple of years. But if this is how it is, like, I really don't have much confidence. Like, man, it's just all a charade. Like, don't really have much confidence in the political system if this is how it is to get stuff done, But yeah, so now let's I'll kind of go through step by step, kind of chronologically what we saw on Thursday. So. Up first was a public comment period, and we heard from A's fan and lawyer Jeremy Koo, and we actually are going to have Jeremy on our next podcast. Hopefully it should be up in the next couple of days, like earlier this week, maybe on Tuesday or Wednesday. And so he's been at both of the most recent meetings. I don't know if he's been at once before, but he was the one who kind of brought it up last time that in the non-relocation agreement, the language of last time, that it said the A's could play up to 7 games a year out of 81, so almost 10% of their games outside of Las Vegas, and that didn't go over well with the public. Again, 40 minutes before this meeting on Thursday, they dropped the new non-relocation agreement, so this is what Koo talked about in his opening statement. In the new language, the reduction was from 7 games a year to 4 games a season outside of Vegas, or 7 games every 2 seasons. So Koo did the math, like say it's 7 games every 2 seasons, 7 times 15, it's like 105 games that the A's could potentially be missing. And as he said, lawyers, as he tweeted out, lawyers aren't great at math, and he mistakenly said it was only 85 games were going to be missed, but it's actually 105 games that are going to be missed.
Under the draft non-relocation agreement presented today, the A's would be allowed to relocate no more than 7 home games every 2 years, no more than 4 in any season. And that is up to 85 home games over the 30-year life of this deal. That is similar to the non-relocation agreement approved today by the St. Petersburg City Council that calls for no more than 9 games in any 3-year period. But the Tampa Bay Rays didn't seek support from the state of Florida. The A's did seek support from the state of Nevada. And this board should bear in mind its responsibility to ensure the legislature gets the deal it negotiated. Each game relocated means $380,000 in incremental tax revenue will either be lost, or A's Stadco has to find another event to replace it that couldn't have been scheduled during A's road trips or outside of the regular season. The board needs to ask itself if the legislature was aware that fewer than 82 MLB games could be played at the stadium when it insisted on writing $2 million in annual community benefits into statute. And what good are those community benefits if the community has to pay a higher tax rate or forego government services to make up the shortfall caused by relocating those games? Thank you.
And again, this kind of goes against the outlandish projections presented by Jeremy Aguero of Applied Analysis, the economist or the lobbyist posing as an economist who, helped SB1 get through last year. And, they're projecting over 30,000 fans every year for 81 games for 30 years. So, 105 games at 30,000 fans. That's about 3 million fans are missing out of these initial projections. And then we heard from Alexander Marks of the Nevada State Education Association. That's the teachers union that's behind the two PACs that have tried to, fight against this SB1 being passed in order to get $380 million back to Nevada. And just by formula, 40% of that money would be $140 million to go back to public schools. So that's the ultimate aim of the NSEA with these two PACs. Schools over stadiums, of course, was kind of had a hiccup, and they got defeated in their effort to put a referendum on this year's ballot. But Strong Public Schools Nevada is currently challenging SB1 in 5 different areas, and one of them has to do with public personal seat licenses and the constitutionality of that. And I'll get into that in a bit. But basically, Marks went up here, and the public comments are limited to 3 minutes. But Marks basically laid out all the missteps by the A's since they announced Vegas happening, and he kind of did it in the theme of the aristocrats joke. So,
good afternoon, Alexander Marks speaking on items 2 through 5. A family walks into a talent agency, and the father says, "We have an amazing act for you. If you see it, we know you'll represent us." And the agent says, "Okay, I'll take a look." The show starts with unregistered lobbyists presenting an economically debunked deal for a publicly funded retractable roof. Vegas is different, they say. In May, everyone realizes Fisher's trying to play 3 seasons worth of games away from the state that just gave him public money. 1 year in, the easiest part of this entire thing has been getting money from politicians. July, no one knows where the stadium is on the lot, and nobody knows how he's paying for it. Yet we have a, quote, development deal, and its contents are hidden about 40 minutes till this meeting started. Officials continue to gaslight our community and tell us that we're just noise instead of holding this owner accountable. 13 months later, we rank 48th in education and 47th in well-being. For the longest time, the agent sits in silence, nonplussed. Finally, he manages, "That's a hell of an act. What do you call that?" And the father says, "The aristocrats." I hope that joke does not fall on deaf ears.
So I'm not sure if this hit with the stadium authority. I don't know if that's the target audience for the aristocrats joke. Probably went completely over their head, but I do applaud the effort from Alex. And if you don't know what the aristocrats is, it's very NSF, very not safe for work. But if you feel so inclined to look up what it is, make sure you're prepared to be absolutely disgusted or have a good sense of humor and realize that it's a comedian's joke about comedians. But check out Gilbert Gottfried's The Aristocrats. Again, with a lot of warning, have headphones in if you're at work or something.
He says, "Now, what do you call yourself?" And they go, "The Aristocrats."
But anyways, okay. So after that, they went on to the agenda items. And item 1 was just kind of some clerical stuff with the budget with Allegiant Stadium. And it's kind of funny, like the Stadium Authority was like, "Yeah, what are we voting on? Okay, whatever it is, I say aye." And it's just kind of like, again, it just kind of seems like a green light authority. They just want all sports and any sports to come to Vegas. That's what it sounds like to me.
This is an action item. Staff recommends approval and is available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Finger. Could you either call up or describe exactly what you're asking our approval of?
I'm asking for approval of this particular piece of paper attached as an agenda.
Any questions from the board? I'd entertain a motion.
Tommy White, motion to approve.
Jones Blackhurst, second.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. That passes. Great. Agenda item 2.
Again, adding to my theory that this is a green light committee, not an oversight committee. Stadium Authority Chairman Steve Hill is the biggest cheerleader for this thing, and he seems all on board with what the A's are saying. He's drinking all the A's Kool-Aid, and it's a reminder that, he is also the chairman or the president of the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, whose entire job in existence is try to draw as many people to Vegas as possible.
I want to thank the A's for having worked through some issues with the non-relocation agreement, and as you'll all see if you haven't read it already, the development agreement that will be presented today. It's just a dense document. It's a tough thing to describe, and I think they've done a very good job of doing it. We're in a good situation in both of those, so I want to thank everybody involved for making that happen, not just the A's, but certainly Ed and Caroline, Mark, everybody on our team as well.
So again, I get it. I mean, Hill wants to stimulate the economy, get as many people to Vegas as possible, but you know, at what cost? You know, like you're getting in bed with the Fishers and Cavill. Like, do you really want to do business with these guys for 30 years? We will find out. Sounds like Hill has no worries, you know. And then we heard from Sandy Dean. So this was kind of when it really started getting going. He introduced himself and acknowledged that the development agreement has a lot of the same language as the Raiders, but a lot of details are missing.
The various documents that are being brought forth, it's a lot of material, and we appreciate the engagement on that. We obviously had a good base to start with the documents from what worked for the Raiders, but also it's still a lot of details to confirm.
So again, what's missing? Again, after the A's have, 15 months of being in Vegas, well, mainly a finalized stadium design and how it's going to be paid for, when it's going to be done, what it's going to look like, basically all the major questions that you want to know. And, but we did hear that something has been finalized. It's the location on the Tropicana lot, and here is Dean describing it.
The ballpark has been located. It's going to be just a bit northeast of the center of the site. And the orientation of the ballpark will be towards MGM Grand and New York. So there'll be some view of those as you look out the window from the design.
So judging from the renderings that they've already issued to us, which also feature New York and MGM kind of out the window, it seems like maybe this is the same location that they had specified before. And Dean also said that Bally's is working hard to complete their initial planning for a Phase 1 resort, but no details on when that would be finished because they got a lot of, they just, closed out a huge $1.2 billion deal with Bally's to finance their casino in Chicago. But here's that clip from Dean.
Bally's is working hard to complete their initial planning for a Phase 1 resort and has a significant team assembled for that. The timing of when a Phase 1 resort would be built is something that's still yet to be determined. We hope to be into the county with our preliminary entitlement package in the coming weeks.
So again, why this is interesting is because we're hearing from A's fan Vitamin D, who's locked in with developers in Las Vegas, that John Fisher would be hesitant to underwrite the first $100 million as stipulated in SB1 unless there was an ancillary hotel. But, Bally's, their senior vice VP of finance, Charles Dow, said in May that Bally's has no money to invest in the A's ballpark, and they'd be interested in just letting, just eating a $10.5 million annual rent payment to GLPI on their 26 acres of the Tropicana lot and just letting their option go up and wait till the A's build a ballpark so their 26 acres is more valuable. So, Bally's is saying we're not going to build a hotel because we don't have money, but then here's Dean saying that, that they're working on a Phase 1 resort. So this is interesting because the A's are kind of in a time crunch, but according to the language of SB1, they have to have a signed development agreement 18 months after the signature of SB1. And, that makes it so that SB1 was signed by the governor on, I believe, June 15th of last year, June 15th or June 16th. So 18 months from there puts the deadline, the first hard deadline, I believe, at December 15th. Otherwise, the stadium authority to approve this deal will dissolve, and I believe they have to go back to the drawing board. Dean is saying that they're working hard to complete their initial planning, which is a very, they could have, working hard to complete initial planning, like, wow, it sounds like a whole bunch of nothing to me, but anyways, I guess they're trying to get a casino done. So next door, which I think is very key to this project. So then Dean went to go on and list all the architects and developers who have signed on to bring this project to a reality, which again, you got to do. It's just part of the deal. Like if they said this in July of last year, it would be like, okay, cool, you got your architect. But it's July of this year. It's like, why are you still touting that as something you've accomplished? And then Dean also said that during the MLB relocation process, which, he said it was a 3-month process that happened before last November's vote, which of course was a unanimous vote by all 30 commissioners, baseball owners, to approve the A's relocation to Las Vegas for 2028. He said our plans to finance the ballpark were reviewed, but that seems contradictory as he goes to lay out that the A's still, their ballpark plans, their ballpark financials plan is still up for grabs. So how did it get reviewed if it's still not even finalized like 8 months later? Like, it just doesn't make sense. And then he also admitted that there might be cost overruns. And again, a couple of months ago, D was hearing that he's hearing it's going to be 20% over budget. So at a $1.5 billion initial budget, that's a $1.8 billion. Maybe we're talking about a real stadium here. So where this is interesting is the A's, in the language of SB1, the A's are responsible for all cost overruns unless there's like a late addition by the stadium authority. But so I'm guessing that maybe at the end of the day, when they do present, if they do, when and if they do present a finalized development agreement, that the price tag might be closer to $1.8 or $2 billion, just so the A's protect themselves from doing any cost overruns, because we know anything about Fisher, he does not want to pay for anything he doesn't have to. So. But then came, I thought, kind of the juiciest part of Dean's address as he offered the current update of the financial plan. So here, I'll just play it out for the entirety. There's about a 2-minute clip, and then I'll kind of go through and break down why I think there's a lot of holes in what he's saying.
And second, on our financing, this has been a topic of some speculation in the press. One thing I'll start with is that as part of our relocation process with the league, which was a more than 3-month process, our plans to finance the ballpark were reviewed and considered by the league. The budget for the ballpark has been set and talked about publicly for some time at $1.5 billion. In these kinds of big projects, that number usually doesn't go down. We'll see if it goes up. The project is going to be financed from 3 sources. Public funds, which is what brings us here from time to time, and some privately borrowed funds and equity contributions to the team. The public funds we expect will be in the range of $350 million, or perhaps just under. And it will be less than the maximum amount that was stated in the bill. And that's really a product of the amount of bonds that can be underwritten by the county based on the projections and so on that are associated with the ballpark. And that 350 sort of number is what we have expected really since the passage of SB1. The bill says 380 as a maximum, but we think it'll be a little bit less, and that's fine. The privately borrowed component of the financing, we expect to be about $300 million. We have yet to secure the debt financing. And also, I can tell you, we've had strong interest from a number of lenders that want to participate in that portion of the project and are excited to participate in that. I think in particular because the amount of privately borrowed funds relative to the value of the team and the value of the ballpark when it's done is conservative. And then the balance will be equity contributions to the team. And the Fisher family could do all of the required equity for the project. And also, it's been reported that we think it would be a positive to have outside investors in the team, particularly investors from Las Vegas. And so we are going to talk with folks about that. And that's something we'll be getting going on in the coming months. It has been intentional to defer that until sometime soon, because we thought it would be helpful to have the design for the stadium be more refined before going out to talk with investors. I want to state in the affirmative, we are in good shape for the financing. It is something we've been planning for some time, and we'll be back with more detail on that, I think, in the fall.
And what's interesting here is Dean doesn't think that the A's will even be able to ask for $380 million. It'll be more like $350, so maybe that their projections are kind of coming down, and their internal projections are also coming down a little bit, something to keep note of. And they mentioned that they're going to be seeking $300 million in debt financing, and we saw the Raiders do something similar, when they went through the Allegiant Stadium process, and Sheldon Adelson, backed out of a $650 million commitment along with Goldman Sachs, but the Raiders were eventually able to find $650 million from Bank of America in a loan, but we haven't heard anything from the A's about that. but he's saying that there's interested investors, but okay, but if they were interested, they would pay, but they don't have anything yet. And he also said that Fisher could do the financing, all the financing for himself, but that they're still looking for investors, and they're going to get going on that in the next couple months. And it's like, again, what have you been doing these past 15 months, dude? Like, once you establish Vegas, you would think the first thing you would do is try to find investors, So, but he said that it's been intentional to defer finding investors until they finalize their stadium design. It's like, dude, what have you been doing? Get the design. Like, I don't know what's taking so long. It's crazy. So, and again, what's crazy about this, Sandy Dean got no questions. And if I was there, I would have been asking him, what exactly you guys been doing the past 15 months? Again, and then it was interesting. We got kind of a look at the timeline from Steve Hill. He kind of gave us an update on the timeline going forward. He said that the Stadium Authority is going to meet again in August, and then he doesn't know if it's going to meet again in September or October. They'll have to see how much progress the A's have made, but again, seems like this thing is far away from completion. And then I also thought it was interesting that Hill mentioned that there could be 2 meetings in early December. And again, I believe by the language of SB1, the A's have to have a signed development agreement through the Stadium Authority by December 15th. So Hill was saying that they might have to meet on the 5th and the 12th.
The only other thing I will mention is we will meet again in August. We will bring the lease back at that meeting in August. We will not then meet in September, and then we will look at what the right schedule is for October and November. The first time frame causes us to probably put a couple of meetings on consecutive Thursdays on your calendars early in December, because we're going to want to get some or all these documents finalized by that time frame. So probably, I can't remember exactly what those, the 5th and the 12th or something along those lines.
So I don't know, my spidey senses just feel weird about this, It just seems, I'm kind of getting flashbacks to last year when SB1, the A's needed a special session. Again, Nevada legislators meet every 2 years for 120 days. And at the end of 120 days, they still hadn't heard SB1, so the A's got a special session called, and these people were just trying to go home, get back to their families. They were worn out after, it becomes like a huge marathon thing at the end of these things, and they had to call them back, I think, 3 or 4 different days, through these extended sessions, and they finally got SB1 passed while, the Vegas, the Golden Knights were winning their first ever Stanley Cup. So I'm kind of getting the same vibes here. It just seems like they're going to try to sneak in. If they do get this deal done, they're going to try to sneak in. I'm assuming they're going to try to sneak in some stuff in these December dates. I mean, we'll have to see how September and October go. But the fact that Hill's already hinting at 2 early December meetings, I think we got to be careful about that, because it kind of seems like part of the A's playbook, is to jam stuff in at the last minute. So, it's kind of emotional. You don't have time to interpret and read everything, and kind of jam stuff in under the door at the last minute. Maybe legally, but, not to give proper time and for everything to get read and everything. So, we saw this again like last year, and I wonder, I also wonder too, if the A's kind of want, to get some, maybe they're looking for some local momentum in the whole Vegas sports expansion boom market. The NBA just, completed its media deal, and now I believe the NBA is going to be starting to focus on expansion now that they knocked out their media deal. And, Vegas and Seattle have been, bandied about as probably the next 2 sites for expansion. Some rumors about LeBron getting ownership in the next Vegas franchise or something crazy like that. So I'm wondering if the A's are kind of waiting for that to pick up, and maybe they can get some leftovers from NBA investors. Again, this is like tinfoil hat stuff, but I'm just trying to think of why the A's are delaying this, and it just doesn't. I just think they don't have anything, and they're just trying to get any juice that they can, and they just don't have anything really. So, if they did have investors and they did have lenders, I think that's something you would announce, because it would get build confidence in your project. But what do I know? Sandy Dean said it's all by design. So, and then after that, after Hill's little address, The meeting went on to items 2 and 3, which basically just outlined that Athletic Stadco is the new developer partner and stadium events company for this project. So again, just kind of paperwork, just kind of, okay, the A's established this arm, this is a necessary step. So after that, like about a half hour into the meeting, they brought on Mark Arnold, who is a Houston-based lawyer who he also took part in Raiders proceedings when this was going on, and I'm honestly unclear why he's brought into this process. Maybe they just trust him. He has a lot of experience, it looks like, in real estate and stuff like that. But he's not part of the stadium authority. He mentioned that he flew in from Houston, and but he was the one who kind of laid out the whole 90-page development agreement that was shared to the public 40 minutes before this meeting. And honestly, most of this document is just mumbo jumbo. And here is probably, I'm going to share, this is probably the most important page of the doc because it basically explicitly lays out that the A's don't have a sound financial plan right now. It's very ambiguous language. I mean, just check out the language at the very bottom of this. So this page basically just outlines that they're going to use, $380 million, up to $380 million in public funds from SB1, which you already knew about last year. They may use PSLs, personal seat licenses, but again, that's still up in the air too. That's not for sure. And then I thought this was the funniest part because it just describes how much the A's are going to pay for this. It says, an amount as determined from time to time equal to the amount necessary to complete project improvements in accordance with the project cash budget. Yada, yada, yada. So basically, it's just an ambiguous way of saying the A's will pay as much as they have to. Or, maybe. And it'll be determined from time to time. Like, I don't know. Just very ambiguous language there. But basically, yeah, they don't, they got nothing. They got nothing solid. So, and I think perhaps the juiciest soundbite came from Arnold, and it didn't even, if you weren't listening closely, it didn't sound like much, but it could be used as ammo against the Stadium Authority, against SB1 when Strong Public Schools Nevada, goes to court challenging the constitutionality of SB1.
There's also a provision in here that talks about PSL revenues and sales. PSL stands for personal seat licenses. That was a feature of the Raiders transaction. It is unclear whether that's going to be a feature of this transaction, but it's left in here in case public seat licenses are sold as it was left in SB1. A personal seat license, of course, is you pay the team, or us, to be honest, a amount of money for the right to buy season tickets. And that money, that revenue stream can then be financed by a financing company.
So this little sound clip is interesting because Arnold is basically admitting that the Stadium Authority is the one who's capturing the money from this personal seat licenses. And if that's the case, Strong Public Schools Nevada is arguing, as Chris Daly, the political director of NSEA, laid out to us on the podcast recently. Strong Public Schools Nevada is challenging that if the PSLs bring in public money, any passage of legislation requires a 2/3 majority vote, and they didn't get that for SB1. It was around 61-62% instead of the 67%. So Alex Marks of Strong Public Schools Nevada and this NSEA also noted that this might be a little slip up that they could be used for them in court, because basically the Stadium Authority is admitting that Nevada is making money off of this and not the A's. So that could throw a wrench into the A's plans in their lawsuit, but we shall see how that court. I don't know if a court date has been established for that yet, but we're gonna have to keep an eye on that lawsuit when it plays out. And honestly, we have to keep an eye on the whole PSL situation because traditionally they don't really work. Like they do in the NFL. In the NFL, so basically a PSL, it's like you pay a huge upfront fee to say, I'm gonna have season tickets here at these seats for the next X amount of years, whatever, 10 years or whatever. It's a huge revenue generator for NFL. I believe the Raiders pulled in like 500 or almost 600 million or something crazy, like a bunch of money for it. But that's because there's only 8 games a year. It's the NFL. It's a whole different beast. 8 times, I think Allegiant Stadium is 65,000 seats. There's 8 or 9 regular season games. That puts you at about 500,000 seats. That's 17 A's games, 18 A's games. That's like 2 or 3 homestands. So it's a little different, The supply and demand just simply isn't there. There's a few, just doing a cursory look, it looks like there's a few teams that do PSLs in baseball, but it's more like, elite clubs or like small sections, like it's not like the whole stadium like the NFL where they can sell out like thousands of these things, you know? So I think it's kind of misleading to put it on there, because even if the A's do use it, which they don't know if they're going to use, it wouldn't be that huge of a generator of money, probably. And also, Arnold kind of laid out and kind of spelled out that the A's don't have a design for this thing stabilized yet. There's something called a design build agreement, which really lays out, you know, completion dates, how much it'll cost, you know, how much each piece will cost, you know, like the detailed plan on construction plan. And there is none. And Arnold, it sounds like they're not even close to one, just listening to Arnold.
But this section defers to the yet to be drafted design build agreement for the substantial completion date and what is actually being built. That's not to say that no work has been done on that. The A's have been designing, as you heard from Mr. Dean, the transaction. They've already identified who they want as a contractor and an architect and all of that. So processes are moving forward. Schematic design is happening. We're just not ready yet, which is why this is not an action item to attach all these pretty pictures and things to this document.
And at the end of his address, Arnold says that the development agreement won't be ready in August because it's so much work.
I don't expect this agreement to come back in August, because the detail that has to go into this agreement is plans, specs, design build agreement, all that stuff, which will take the summer for the A's to get together to figure out, make it all work together in here.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much, and thanks again for being here.
Again, pardon my French, but no shit, like, what have they been doing the past 15 months, 15 months? It's like, yeah, no, it's a lot of work. Like, they should have been doing this, and it sounds like they're just getting started now. Like, it's crazy. Like, Dean is saying they're going to get going on investors in the next few months, and it's just like, geez Louise. So after Arnold was done talking, laying out this 90-page draft development agreement, it took him about 35 minutes. There were 0 questions from the Stadium Authority Board again. So this gives me the impression this is just like a green light committee, and they don't really care. It's not really an oversight committee. That was pretty much the end. There was also some public comments also. You know, Jeremy Koo talked again, and he made another public statement laying out how the Raiders are exempt from paying $17 million in property tax, and that the A's ballpark might be in the same ballpark of tax exemption, and that should be considered by the board and the treasurer. So here's that quote.
But I'm puzzled by why 157 wouldn't apply to the A's and Raiders running a business for profit on land owned by the Stadium Authority that is exempt from real property tax. I've seen estimates that the annual property tax bill for Allegiant Stadium would be around $17 million without the exemption, and I believe the baseball stadium would be in the ballpark of that. Look, I'm just a California lawyer, but I won't hold myself out as an expert in Nevada law, but if you don't know the answer to that question, I would suggest that the authority discuss the matter with its counsel and the A's discuss it with their counsel, since it certainly has implications for any financial projections that it's making to potential investors or lenders.
But again, at this point, I think Jeremy has read this language a lot closer than these people from the Stadium Authority Board. I mean, I just feel like they're just like sitting like in class, just trying to get through class, like 7th period, just like trying to get through this thing, you know? Like, I don't know. I just got this totally disinterested vibe from this board. And that was pretty much the meeting. I guess my big takeaway from all this is that it really seems, so they're not going to meet, so they're going to meet in August, but in August, there's really not going to be any more meat on this bone yet, according to Arnold, on the development agreement. Until we see the first chance we could see some real meat on this bone is either September or October. And again, the fact that Hill mentioned that they might have 2 meetings, December 5th, December 12th, before the December 15th meeting, just makes me think that there's something that the A's are really going to try to sneak something in at the last minute, you know? So another big takeaway is I really don't feel like there's going to be much resistance from the Stadium Authority here. I feel like they'll approve anything that gets put in front of them. It's really up to the A's to get done here. And perhaps they'll find investors, perhaps GLPI will throw more money at this, as I detailed in the previous video in another Ricky report. But the fact that they haven't found investors yet, I think, is a red flag, you know? And I know Dean is saying, like, oh, don't worry, this is by design. It's like, because we're trying to finalize a stadium design. It's just like, dude, what have you been doing? What have you been doing these past 15 months? So, and again, Dean seems pretty confident that Fisher could fund this whole thing if they don't find investors. Fisher and Dean, you know, Sansom Partners, just for example, they bought, I believe they're the biggest redwood operator in the whole world. I think it's over 400,000 acres of redwoods up in the Northern California. And, Dean was head of the Mendocino Redwoods Company, and that's part of Sansom Partners, which has $1 billion of assets because, they bought that piece of land for $530 million in 2008. So you can imagine they have billions of dollars of assets that Fisher has his fingers in. So maybe Fisher does have the money, but could, the ability to fund something and willingness to fund something are two different things. So if it comes down to it, we'll have to see if Fisher has the balls to really, underwrite this whole project and really, put a lot of, $1 billion or more into this project. So in the end, I just think this all comes down to money, who's going to pay for it, how much it's going to cost, et cetera, et cetera. So, I really don't think that the A's have made much progress, just judging from these statements. If they made these comments a year ago, I'd be like, okay, but 15 months in, it's a little bit different, So we'll have to see how it all plays out. See what happens in August. I believe, they could look at the non-relocation agreement then, but I'm not expecting the development agreement, and then we'll have to wait till September or October to see how that all plays out, and then, of course, December. So, I think the A's are really running up against it. Maybe that's by design. But for now, it doesn't seem like they got much of anything to stand on right now, So, all right, thanks a lot for listening. I'm Alex Espinoza with Ricky Blog. Make sure to use the code RickyBlog at lastibar.com. Use my affiliate link down below. I'll be back with some more Ricky Reports later this week. And stay tuned for the podcast with Jeremy Koo, too. It should be really good and insightful stuff. So, all right, thanks a lot.